Welcome to the Endless Entrepreneurs YouTube channel. My name is Luke Henson. I am a eBay seller, a real estate investor, and I also do full-time contract work in the corporate finance world. I use this channel to document those three kind of triages of income sources, and hope to share information to help you guys in your related businesses. So this question, or I should say the title of this video, comes from a question that I've been getting a ton recently, and I feel bad I've taken so long to address it, but if I'm being completely honest, I've just been figuring out as I go pretty much since March as far as hiring help goes. And I really wanted to have a little more experience under my belt before I came out and talked about it, because I wanted to iron out some of the kinks and figure some things out. And I don't know, I'm always cautious to come bring something that I haven't proven yet. Just because I don't want to send someone down a rabbit hole or give them bad advice or waste their time. But I've been doing it long enough now, and I think that I have at least a firm grasp of where I'm heading with hiring help and with having help and growing my business. But I wanted to bring this topic to you guys. So if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping in. This is live, so I will do Q&A throughout and try to address people's questions. But again, today, the things I'm really going to cover is from a reselling perspective is, why would you want to hire help? How would you go about hiring help? What would a basic workflow look like? What does my workflow look like? And what does my ideal model look like? Those are really the core things that I'm going to touch on through this video. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. But I'm going to jump right in here. People are starting to filter in, and it is Friday night. So I'm not sure what our turnout will be, but hopefully lots of people will get to rewatch this and get value out of it. So some background. So I sold on eBay, for pretty much a decade, but very seriously, I would say at more than just a hobby seller for probably 3.5, 4 years now. And pretty much primarily used clothing from Goodwill I started with, ventured into some more new with tag stuff, bought a couple pallets last year, experimented with bulk buying, kind of dabbled in a bunch of different things, a bunch of different genres. And I got to a point where, from a volume perspective and maximizing my time, I just hit a wall because it's just me. And I'm juggling through this entire process. All these years, I've juggled a 9-to-5 throughout, some form of a 9-to-5. Right now, I've evolved into what is pretty much contract finance, so I get paid, by the hour for what I actually perform, which is exactly what I want. Just so that I have time to work on my other businesses. It's a great balance. But at one time, I was salaried, working excessively over 40 hours. And so I was just burning myself out all the time, trying to maximize those hours. And to be honest, I got to a point where I just couldn't grow any further with just me. And that's really what it came down to, is I kept ironing out systems, getting more efficient, being a better buyer, better sourcer, raising my average sale price, doing all these things to maximize my time more and more and more, because you only get so much time to put into your business. That's it. You get what you get. And so I, over the years, have found these little hacks and little ways to just increase the hourly, right, the return on those hours I was putting in my business. And I pretty much, I got married in January, and shortly after that, I just kind of was calculating my time and realizing I was kind of out of rope as far as it goes for continuing to maximize that and getting a bigger and bigger return if I didn't change up what I was trying to do. And to be honest, when I look at my personal opinion and my situation, is I'm not willing to give up the workout schedule. My wife and I do CrossFit now. We love it. We do it together. I'm not willing to give up doing something with my friends once or twice a week. To me, that is important. I'm not willing to give up playing basketball in adult league once a week and playing softball once a week. These things, they take time. And time to travel to, time to organize, time to commit to. And those are the only other hours I had left if I wanted to keep growing my business. And I just realized these are non-negotiable. So hopefully that answers the question of kind of why and when you may want to consider hiring help. But I do want to encourage you, when you hit your first wall, you should blow through that and find many, many, many ways by yourself to keep increasing your ROI and your, the return on your time before you go down this road. That's my personal opinion. You may have the business acumen and the superior knowledge and stuff to just jump right in and scale and hire and do it, and then great if that's you. But I think that a big thing that I've learned through kind of working with other working with contractors, which is kind of my model, is if you don't understand the ins and outs, the pitfalls, the things that have slowed you down. If you haven't mastered your craft, really, really well, it's hard to teach it to someone who may be new to it, may be semi-experienced, may do it a different way than you, may have never done it before, right? You have to have that already mastered so that you can spend your time, I would say, effectively teaching them, so that you're not slowly ramping up. You're getting people on board and getting them effective for your business right away. So I would just encourage, make sure you hit your limit on time and growing before you jump into that. Otherwise, you might stunt yourself and move further back than you want than forward. So that's just kind of my little word of caution here. But again, I've been getting an enormous amount of questions around this, so I figured now's the time to kind of talk about it. So that's why to hire and when to hire for me. Now comes the question of how do you hire? What do you hire? Do you hire an employee, or do you hire a service, right? Some type of service to kind of subcontract out or part out a part of your business that you don't have to do. Those are decisions you have to make right away. For me, I don't have time to watch or manage someone on an hourly basis, right? It's not like I have my schedule set up where I just have someone come over to my house and work side by side with me, and now we're doing double the work and whatever. That's just not a real viable option. One, to be honest with you, I don't want a bunch of people at my house. I just don't. My house is my one safe haven. That's where I enjoy my family time. I just don't want that. For some people, it works great. For me, that's just not what I wanted. So you think about that, one. Two, when you hire an employee, there are a lot of other things that come with it. And I'm not going to go deep into that because it varies by state. There's federal, there's state laws around employees and, things that you have to handle. The costs around that, right? You might be paying hourly and getting more out of it, but there are a lot of different tax things that come with it. There are insurance things you have to offer based on how many hours they're working. There's just a whole slew of things once you start getting that employee realm. So you got to figure out which realm you want to go. I went the opposite. I went the contract route, and I'll kind of talk about that in a little more detail now, kind of defining to me what a contractor is. So I personally am a contractor for a bank, right? I do work in the finance for a bank, do contract work, right? They pay me hourly to provide a service to them, a skill set to them that they either don't have or that they're looking for, whatever. And it's a defined or undefined amount of time, or it renews, right? And I'm providing a service. And so that's really what I'm doing, is I'm trying to find people who can provide me a service, who can charge me for their service, right? Invoice me for their service at a rate per piece. And that's how I have defined and done it for my business. Is I have broken it into two categories, really, for me. I have basically photography services, and I have contract services that I hire out, and that I have people provide to me, and then I have what I call listing services, so virtual assistant services. And so those are the two avenues I look at. If you ever look at my P&L or whatever, that's what it is. It's contract, or I have photography contract services, and I have listings, VA services that I'm paying for. I have a hybrid where I have some people who are providing both, right, end to end. They're doing the photography, they're doing the listing, they're doing the whole thing. And then I have some who are just doing photography, and I have some who are just doing the VA stuff. But those are really the two avenues. And I have price bands for them, right? So I'm being invoiced photography, and basically being invoiced at $1.25 a unit for them doing the photography and the measurements, and uploading those pictures to either Dropbox or InkFrog, depending on what their avenue is. And then I charge $1.25, or I get charged $1.25 for the listing service, so drafting the listing in eBay or InkFrog. And I'll get into InkFrog here in a little bit. So $2.50 all in to get an item photographed, measured, and drafted on InkFrog, and which is the equivalent of having a draft ready on eBay for me. Now, I also have another flavor to this, where with my listing services, right, that I'm having people invoicing for, I also have them cross-post to Poshmark. And so for that, it's 75 cents a listing. So if I get something end-to-end with all three of those contract services live on eBay and Poshmark, it's costing me $3.25. So some may say that's too much. Some may say that's too little. I don't know. But to be honest, most of the feedback I've gotten from a lot of other resellers is, why are you paying so much? To me, I feel like it's slightly higher than maybe the work justifies. But I think that anyone who's providing that service to you long term and is doing a high quality job, I'd rather pay them more and have the longevity than to pay them less or try to get the most out of it and have to constantly deal with turnover. So that's just my general philosophy. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So there's that piece to it. But those are the three kind of avenues I have, right? Is I have photography, I have listing services, and then like kind of cross posting onto other platforms. So those are kind of the three ways that I divide it. Now, kind of what defines a contractor versus an employee is they I mean, inherently have to be able to provide the service to you without you giving like continual instruction, right? Basically, like if you were to hire a contractor to come into your house and do work, you would say like, this is what I want done. This is what I want to look like at the end. Tell me what you'll charge me, right? And I'll pay that. Or I'm going to get quotes and I'm going to tell you all, well, this is what I'm willing to pay. So if any of you are going to do it for this, this is what I'm willing to pay, right? And so it's a communicated expectation and a deliverable, rather than the task being variety and changing day to day and the task being whatever you tell that person to do, like that employee relationship. The second thing is they have to clearly invoice you, right? Like you can't have like a set wage or sign someone every week or whatever. That's not even true, because I have paid a graphic designer like a monthly wage to manage a website before, right? That's a service. They're invoicing me for their business, but they have to really establish the fact that like they're invoicing you is their business. And that's why the majority of my contractors are already resellers. So they're basically adding an avenue to their reselling business, and they're charging me, they're prepping items based on their experience and knowledge they have and charging me for it. So that's kind of where that contractor mentality comes from. So I just want to clarify that's how I'm handling it. I have a CPA I work with closely, so I kind of cross all my T's and understand what I need to do there. I don't want to go deeper in that because it varies so much by state that you really, really need to do your own research and just know what you're doing there. Great question in the chat. They said, what amount of pictures per unit? And I'll address that. I'm going to jump into the workflow anyways here pretty soon. So I don't have a requirement for the amount of pictures, but I have a general, basically what I provide is the critical details that need to be in the photographs. And however they can efficiently do that in a professional manner, I allow them latitude to do because it's their service to me. But in general, I like to have a full 360 view of the garment. I want to see the brand tag. I want to see the material tag. And that's pretty much, and then there's the last component is I have them, if they're uploading for my VA, for a different VA, they have to take a photo of the whiteboard, which has the measurements on it. So it has the key measurements, whether it's, pit to pit, sleeves length for a top, plus the inventory number that it was assigned, they're signing it. That way the virtual assistant can see in the Dropbox folder, which I use Dropbox, they can see the photos, all the details they need, the material, the brand, and the measurements. And they have everything they need right there in the folder for the pictures to draft the listings. So that's that. So we've covered so far, just to kind of recap, because this is a lot of information, and I really want to get this out there because, like I said, I've been getting asked this a ton. So we've covered so far why to hire, when to hire, and what the definition really is of a contractor versus employee, because that's really a decision you have to make. And there's going to be one that's right for you and not right for you, depending on your situation, right? So this one just happens to be right for me because I don't really have any plans of stopping my 9 to 5. Like, it's not like I'm trying to open a distribution center tomorrow and scale and have employees and taking truckloads yet. That may be in my future, and it's kind of intriguing to me, and as I keep learning more and scaling, but like immediate future, next couple of years, like that's not really, I'm not giving up my 9 to 5 in the next couple of years, I guess is what I'm saying. So this is really the best model for me. So let me talk about my basic workflow. And I'll share my screen here in a moment and show you InkFrog a little bit when we get to that point. But basically what my ideal model, well, I'll leave the ideal model for the end. So I'm going to talk about, there's 2 workflows. So the one workflow would be a person or a contractor preparing a piece of clothing from start to finish. So basically I would meet them at the beginning of the week. I give them a bin, 2 bins, 3 bins of inventory. And I say bins because I use the bin system for how I store inventory, and it'll make sense here in a minute. But I give them all the units that they're going to prepare for that week. They define how many, what their capacity is to me. They take those, they inspect them, right? Make sure that I didn't overlook any flaws or anything like that. If it's a top, it goes on a mannequin. If it's pants, it gets flat laid. They take the photos that I described, right? A 360 view of the garment tag, so like the material, the brand tag, and then they take the key measurements that I define. They write them on a whiteboard, and they assign it the inventory number and sequence that I've kind of given for them. And they take a picture of that whiteboard, and then that item goes into a plastic bag that I store it in, just like a poly bag, and they tape it and mark it with the inventory number, and it goes back in the bin. Pretty much the best workflow they found that's efficient is they'll knock out all the pictures and pack them back in the bin. And then what I do is I basically require them to have an iPhone for 2 reasons. One is I'm going to start actually very soon. I've been experimenting with it, but they're going to be taking pictures in the square mode for Poshmark, just to make it easier up front. And then uploading to Dropbox is pretty fast that way. And so they can upload to Dropbox. And pretty much what they'll do is they'll bang out all the photos, and then they'll just chill on the couch later. And this is why this is an attractive opportunity to a lot of people, is it's very flexible. They do it around their own schedule. And then they can just sit there on their Dropbox app, create the folders that by inventory number. So like if they did inventory number 300, they'll create a folder, P300. They'll drop all the photos for P300 in there. And then my virtual assistant has access, and I have a business subscription for Dropbox, by the way. It's pretty much the only way to do it once you get, I have like 7 contractors right now. It's like the only way to do it with that many people and licenses. But once they're in there, the virtual assistant knows they're in there. They can take it anytime on their leisure, and they can draft the listing for me and cross-list it to Poshmark. So once it's done from there, right, let's say the VA is going to pick it up, and I'm going to share my screen, and they're going to draft the listing in InkFrog. So let me show you this. And Aaron, I will address your question in a second. So this is what InkFrog looks like. I mean, this is the basic UI here. And I use a thing called profiles, to these master profiles. And what I've done is I've created a master profile for every item type that I would ever expect them to draft. You can see men's suits, blazers, all these, all the way down through, men's and women's. All the virtual assistant has to do is click one, start a new listing, pull in the photos from the Dropbox, and draft the listing. When they're done drafting the listing, they save it to what's called my library. And so I'll show you this. And so once it's in the library, you can see just some of the stuff they've put up recently. It says ready, but there's no price assigned. So what I've done is I have them do everything except for the price. It has a SKU. I will go into this listing. I'll edit it. I'll add a price. I'll add the cost of the unit in here so that for my accounting later if I need it. And then I just set it live, and it automatically integrates with eBay and sets the listing live. Once I've set it live, the VA knows that it's ready, it has a price. They'll come back through, circle back, and they'll cross-list it on Poshmark for me. Once it's cross-listed on Poshmark, they add a dash and a P to the end of the SKU. That way when it sells, it's in the custom SKU field for eBay right here, I know that it's on both platforms, so I can quickly go and delist it on the other so I don't double sell. So that's pretty much, I mean, that's the end-to-end workflow of, did I stop sharing or did I? Okay, I'm still broadcasting. Whew. Sometimes I accidentally stop screen sharing and cancel the broadcast. So that's like the end, that's one end-to-end flow. That's having a photographer, contractor, right, invoices me $1.25 for those photos. VA invoices me $1.25 for the InkFrog, and then 75 cents for the cross-listing. The other workflow is sometimes right now I have 2 people. I had a person roll off who's actually, their business is doing great now, and I'm really pumped for him. But so he's rolled off, but he used to do end-to-end as well. So they'll take the clothes, and they'll do the photos, they'll draft them in InkFrog, they'll do everything start to finish. And for that case, I'm just paying them $2.50. My VA will still come in and cross-list it for 75 cents after. So either works for me. So I think, so the other part of that is I have to meet these contractors, right, physically and exchange inventory, right? It's the one bottleneck where I have to spend my time now, right? So instead of me doing like sourcing Goodwills, and we'll get into kind of what I'm buying soon here in a minute, but instead of sourcing Goodwills, I'm now buying in bulk, and I'm meeting contractors and organizing the inventory, and then I'm setting things live and kind of quality checking it. So that's really hopefully gives you a good view of what I'm doing right now. I'm going to answer Aaron's question right now just because I've been babbling about workflow here for a while and I'm pretty thirsty. So he asked if I have mentors, and that's what really I like that question because I think it's important that everyone has some form of a mentor. To me, a lot of my mentors, right, are people that I follow and consume content of. So like from a social media, just like a general like business building, I consume a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk content. Like I would say 70% of like the overall content I consume is his. Just because I think it's very tactical, it's very practical, no matter what industry you're in. I consume a lot of Peter Voog, believe it or not. I'm not sure. Not a lot of people have heard of him necessarily, but again, I would view that as kind of mentorship with that type of stuff. And then I interact and I network a decent amount with the other resellers in this community. So that would be, I mean, there's a lot of resellers that are doing a lot bigger things than me. And I'm not sure if I would quite label them mentors, but they're people that I can bounce ideas off of, which is really big. So hopefully that answers your question, Aaron. But I do think that's important for people, especially as you're growing. I basically just made a decision in February that, like, the end of February, I was just going to figure this crap out, and I didn't care if I burned money, and I didn't care if I made a ton of mistakes. I was just going to figure out this workflow that worked. And I mean, I do have to give props to Chris over at Daily Refinement because, I mean, I've bounced a lot of ideas off him. He's learned through a lot of mistakes, done a lot of things that I hadn't done yet, and has helped my learning curve tremendously. So I do have to kind of give daps to him on that, especially on the Poshmark side. He's helped me a lot with that. So I think I've covered my basic workflow, and hopefully anyone who's watching this or even understands kind of the workflow there. Now I'm going to talk about kind of like my ideal model, like where I'm striving to go towards, and it's really why I have lacked in making content lately because I've just been grinding so hard at it. Like the momentum's kicking in and I'm starting to see the results. I mean, you guys saw my sales update video. Like I basically doubled my sales year over year in June. So like that was a month and a half, basically a month in of having my VA who was doing listings for me. About 2.5 months in of troubleshooting, just having people work for me in general as contractors. I mean, just the results speak for themselves. And the natural question is, well, you're paying these people, how much are you actually making? I've only taken a 10% net margin hit all in, like on profitability per item. So I've been able for an extra 10% cost to add to this infrastructure. Now I do expect that to go up. I expect to pay even more here, but it's not because of the help I'm paying, it's because of the way I'm starting to source. And so I'm going to dive into that because I think it's important. So one expectation that's really hard, and it's really hard for me in the beginning, was I got so used to juicy thrift store margins, right? These huge, healthy margins all the time, that when I started layering on the cost of paying contractors per item, right, it was chewing into it. And it started to add in the cost of buying in bulk, and it wasn't always cheaper than Goodwill's. And so that was chewing into it a little bit. And then all of a sudden, my requirement for my average sell price didn't seem as good, right, anymore. Because I was like, man, I want to maintain that. I was at like a 55 to 54% net margin. Like I want to maintain that. And what I project now after kind of calculating my numbers and the buying that I'm doing right now and what I'm investing is, I'm probably going to float long term between like high 30s, low 40s in net margin, which I think will be, I would be very, very content with that if I can continue to scale like this and hold a net margin like that. Like that's very, very worth it to me. Monica just asked if I still source at Goodwill, and I will, and I do. I haven't as much this month because I've really been focused on nailing down suppliers. You guys saw I have the one supplier through Smashlots. He's fantastic, Jasper. I'm obviously networking to continue finding other suppliers because I always want to be diversifying in the stuff that I'm buying, and I don't want to be gridlocked to just one person all the time. Like they might be out of stuff that I need, right? There might be a rush for the stuff there, and I all of a sudden am out of inventory. One of the big things of doing this and scaling this way is I can't get caught not having work for my contractors, right? Once I work this hard to establish this workflow and this setup and this base for them, like they have expectations of the volume they're going to fill. I need to make sure I can fulfill that, so I keep that machine moving. And I do view it very much like a machine. And it's funny for any of you that watch Gary Vaynerchuk, like I think about the way he thinks about marketing and building VaynerMedia is kind of the way I'm starting to view reselling. it's like he's trying to build a machine that can just handle whatever he throws at it. And it's kind of like, that's what I'm starting to wrap my mind around, right? Is like, if I can build the processes, the machines, and I can teach someone to do every single bit of the job, every single bit of the business, right? Then one, I can automate all of it. And two, I can scale it to whatever I feel like, right? And consume as much product as I want, which, you know, you'll get to a point where your costs stay fixed and you keep scaling, and so you're actually making more money. So that's just kind of how I've been starting to think, and it's really fun, and I don't know, it's just challenging and exciting to me. So it's a different challenge. Hi, Tina. So there's that. Let me talk about my ideal model, though. I kind of went on a tangent a little bit there. So my ideal model and what I'm striving towards right now is I'm going to maintain, like I said, I have 2 contractors who do end-to-end work for me, and I think it's great. It's awesome. Like, I have no problem with it. But I think long-term, like where I'm trying to continue to hire help, because it's hard to find the skill set of both locally, right? It's hard for me to find someone locally who can do the whole thing end-to-end and does it well and can do the titles and understands. Like, it's hard for me right now. But what isn't hard is finding someone to do just photography, right, at a piece rate. Finding someone who wants a flexible work from home around their schedule, right? Finding that stay-at-home mom who's got kids and wants to manage around that. Finding the student who's in school is looking for some extra money, right? Finding just anyone who's trying to supplement or whatever. It's not hard to find that, especially when you can offer basically, like, most of them are earning, if they're just photography, they're earning like 15 to 20 bucks an hour, right? Like, they can probably do 15 items in an hour pretty steadily, especially once they get the system down. And that's conservative, and at $1.25 an hour, that's not too bad of a wage. So to me, that's not hard. It's not a hard sell. And how I've been finding people, and those of you follow me on Instagram, is I posted just an ad. I mean, it was a photography ad. You should go follow me on Instagram. I'm not going to recite it, but it's something simple, but I crafted it in a way that was attractive. And like I said, in like 12 hours, I had like 30 plus responses. Like, I've still been replying to people, slowly adding people and, you know, vetting them. And it's a really good way to vet people and figure out geographically if it makes sense. And so to me, I want to find 3 photography contractors per 1 virtual assistant, because I think from a capacity standpoint, that puts the VA processing about 150 to 270 listings a week, depending on how many of the photographers are cranking out and what they want. But I think like the ideal is like 3, what I would envision is ideal. It would be 3 photography people doing 90 items a week, 1 VA processing all 90 of those in a week. So 270 new units from like, or new listings a week from like that pod. And it's on 2 platforms, eBay and Poshmark. So I kind of view it in like that pod, like team working, right? So I'd set up the Dropbox for that VA to handle these 3 contractors, like workflow folders. And like, I would just keep establishing these groups. And I think that that would be an awesome way to kind of grow with my current situation, where all I'm handling is the dropping off the inventory, the VAs are handling the listing, and I'm just quality checking and setting the listings live. The tricky part is going to be, and this is what I haven't figured out yet, and I'll definitely have future videos on, is as this scales, like I'm lucky right now because of the summer slowdown, quote unquote, is that once that ramps on the back end, I'm not sure how I'm going to keep up with the shipping, right? It's like I store all my inventory here in my detached garage. And I'm looking at other storage solutions. I'm contemplating bringing like a 10 by 25 big, like pre-built shed onto my property to increase storage. There's a lot of things I'm throwing around. But I think like in the interim, and, you know, as I grow, like that's going to be the model. What would be even more ideal, like I see like a year or 2 years from now, is having a piece of commercial property that I buy, hopefully one that's really beat up. I happen to have some decent contacts who do a lot of good IT work. And I would have it set up with cameras, like, you know, obviously a lot of smart locks, things like that, so that I could have contractors come in as like a basic community workspace. They could knock out work right there, invoice me, and just leave the bins. And then that would take away kind of me having to meet them all the time. I also could have drop off and pickups at that location, right? Like I could even do that at my home now. I just don't want people to know where my home is. I've actually contemplated having a storage unit centrally located and just dropping bins there and telling people, hey, go pick up your bins. They're labeled. like give them all keys to it and here you go. But I think that would be, these are just thoughts swirling through my head. I don't know how many of them I'll execute on, but like as you start, like certain things start to work, you start to get other ideas. But that's where I'm at. I mean, I feel like I've been rambling for a long time now, but I think hopefully this content's valuable. Please know, like, I'm just figuring out as I go. I'm not an expert. There are people who are crushing it, who have these systems figured out. The challenge for me is like, I'm trying to do this part-time. Like, when you like, it's difficult when you work 9 to 5. You don't have those hours logistically to set up a home base and do these things. Like, so I've had to get creative in how I do this. And so far it's working. I mean, I'm going to keep hitting roadblocks. I'm sure I'm going to keep having challenges. I'm going to have turnover, right? I'm going to have people who leave, and that's just the way it goes. Like, I've already had one who's left, and it was great. Like, I've actually helped him. He's been buying in bulk. He just got his first bulk order in. So it's like, I love seeing people do well. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. And it's interesting because, like, I've had a lot of people like, why don't you go into Amazon hard? And it's just, Amazon's just not fun for me. And I don't know how to describe it, because honestly, there's probably a bigger opportunity with Amazon. I mean, I can't say probably. Amazon logistically, especially in my situation, makes way more sense, right? I don't have to warehouse or fulfill any of the orders. Makes way more sense. But it's just not fun. It's not fun to source that way for me. It's not fun to process that way for me. It's just, I like managing the people aspect of it. I'm realizing that I kind of like that. Like, it was funny, I was talking to Shannon about it a little bit. It's like, I always, growing up as a kid, organized a lunchtime football game. Like, I was the guy who made sure we had exactly enough players. I was the guy who made sure the teams were balanced. I was the guy who was out there like, let's go. Right? Made sure it happened, right? Like, I organized almost all of my adult league sports I do. I always have the huge roster, the concrete roster and the huge list of subs to make sure we're never short. And so it's just kind of the same concept. It's like, all the roles you need on your team. The skill sets you need to set them in there. It's managing, making sure they're happy, they're satisfied, they're getting what they want out of the relationship. You have enough backup, you're continuing to grow. Like, it's just, I don't know, like, I like it, I enjoy it, and I find that that's what I'm good at. And so that's why this is attractive to me. I do think the economics aren't as good as Amazon right now, like one for one with the stage I'm at if I was investing this time in Amazon. But I do feel like eventually what will happen is figuring out all these systems and buying in bulk and getting suppliers. And this is eventually, 3-4 years down the road, if I do have a warehouse and I'm buying tractor trailer loads, it's like, I'll be selling on Amazon, all these other platforms as well. And I'll be processing and learning all the systems now. We'll play into that later. So I don't know. It's like, I don't feel like I'm in a race or I'm in a hurry. I'm steadily learning and growing as I go. So I'll take any questions. Like I said, I've been talking for quite a while. I'll take any questions anyone has. I mean, I think I'm pretty transparent showing you what I'm doing. I don't think it's for everyone, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of the thrill of reselling in general is thrifting, right? Thrill of the hunt, flipping, and having the flexibility to do it on your own, right? So this doesn't always make sense for everyone. And it probably doesn't make sense for most. I would say probably 95% of people who want to resell, especially on eBay and Poshmark, this doesn't make sense for. Like, it takes away the fun out of it. For me, this is the fun. So Tina says, I'm thinking of running an office space where I have photographers meet me and they photograph and I list. I don't have to worry about dropping up or picking up merch. They get paid per item. Yeah, I mean, if you can figure out the logistics to make that work, Tina. I mean, my whole thing with when you start renting space, and this is a personal philosophy. And it's like, I have a rental house, and I'm learning this more and more now that I have that, is when I pay rent, I never get that money back. Like, when I think from a business standpoint, you pay rent. The good part is you'll deduct it, right, as an expense, so it's less money you're paying in taxes. But I could pay rent on a property, I can depreciate the property, I can pay the mortgage, and all these are deductions while gaining equity in an asset. So to me, buying a beat up property or house or commercial place or whatever and trying to make that work makes more sense, because then my business is paying for it, and I'm reducing the money I pay in taxes while gaining equity. And this is just more of a philosophy thing. But I think renting serves a purpose while you're figuring out if it works for you, because you don't necessarily just want to jump in and buy a property. But those are just the things that go on in my head. That's just kind of how I think. So yeah, that's kind of where I think about that. But I would also caution you, like, when you decide to do that, whatever you think it's going to cost you, it's going to cost you more than that, because you're just going to have a lot of unexpected expenses when you start doing that. Paul said, when shipping becomes difficult, how about outsourcing it to Tom, Jason, or to Jason and Corin? So that, I'm not sure logistically how that would work. And I'm not sure the economics that would make it worth it for them to handle that. But that's an interesting idea. I mean, what I've thought about, I think the solution to my shipping, Paul, is going to be I'm going to have a neutral location where I keep my inventory eventually. And what that'll be is that's going to be the defined drop-off pickup point for my contractors, which will reduce my travel time. It'll load it right there, and then I can pay someone to go and ship and fulfill my orders every day at that location. That's really what's going to be the next step. That's a while off. I mean, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and stay up late shipping as I keep growing. It's going to keep growing, and that's the reward and the punishment of having success. Oh, Tina says she already has a rental where daughter lives. Oh, nice. All right, so you're already in that mindset then, Tina. Oh, I didn't talk about sourcing. Sorry, I meant to talk about that. That's the other real big piece of this is, so another thing that's ate my margins, and yes, Paul, they do have a warehouse. It's not very centrally located to where I am in Charlotte, and that would require me storing all my inventory there, which I'm not sure they have the room for with all the stuff they've just taken on recently. But that's an interesting idea. So sourcing. So the other part that has changed dramatically for me is I'm buying in bulk now. Almost, I mean, 99% of my sourcing is buying in bulk, not from Goodwills, not from. I'm still going to hit the Goodwills and thrift stores, and probably some of my people who are doing end-to-end item prep, they're going to get a lot of my thrifted stuff because they have the specialty and the skill set to be able to do that, right? They don't need the new tag stuff to process it. They know how to handle the one-offs like that. So that will probably be where I fulfill a lot of my thrifted stuff. But I'm buying in bulk. I've got my second pallet coming Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. And my first pallet I bought, well, first of all, I bought 4 pallets last year. Totally weird purchase. It was shelf pull, new without tags, all being pants. I got them like $1.15 a unit. And in my head, I thought that's what bulk buying was all the way. I'm like, sweet, this is great. What an awesome price point. Yeah, not true. Not true, especially when you go new with tag stuff. And especially when you don't have the buying power to be processing tractor trailer loads. So my first pallet I got at about $5.25 a unit for about 770 units or 760 units of Macy's shelf pulls. It was women's plus size clothing. It's gone really well so far. It's selling pretty decent. Averaging right around like $26, $27 average sale price shipped, including shipping, which has been pretty good. The second one I bought, I paid about $7.40 a unit for. It's a bit higher end. The brands are definitely a tier up, and I'm going to see how that goes. I think the average sale price of that's going to be around $35 shipped, but I'm paying a lot more than I am at thrift stores. Typically, my average thrifted cost is like $4. $3.50 for shorts, $4.99 for jeans, $3.99 for pants, $3.99 for sweaters and shirts. So I'm definitely like, it's a little bit higher. Like that $5.25 is actually fine. Like that's pretty much in line with it. But I'm not getting the home runs, right, as much. So like I'm not getting the $100 suit for $9.99, right? I'm not getting the $100 blazer for $4.99. I'm not getting those same economics. It's a lot more normalized, right? Where like my home runs in the bulk buy for like $5.25 are like 50, 60 bucks, 70 bucks, which isn't bad, right? But it's not as many as you get when you're thrifting and picking things, by yourself versus you're getting what you get in a lot and it's normalized. There's a bottom half, there's a bottom third, a middle third, and a top third. So that's definitely something they've had to realize, and that's where you're taking a little bit of a margin hit. But I'm getting the scale, the savings of time, all these things out of it. I'm establishing the network, the suppliers, so that as I can buy more and more, I should be able to start driving down that price point a little bit. And so that's kind of my goal, is just to keep investing in the infrastructure, investing in the contractors, investing in the inventory, so that I can keep growing and have the buying power to drive down that price, because that's where I'll continue to make the money. So like I said, got that pallet coming. I've been working with another supplier on some like completely different type of inventory. It's apparel, but totally different category that I couldn't get somewhere else here. So the goal will be, hopefully I'll be buying, hopefully 3, 4, 5 pallets a month here, finishing out the year, and getting a couple from each of the suppliers, and having like 2 pods of, like I described, right, 3 photographers and the VA for each of those to handle that. So hopefully we'll be processing like I don't know, somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 units a month would be kind of my end goal, I think, for like this year, for 2018. If I can ramp up to that, that would be amazing. I always have a long way to go. It's not like it's going to be a lot of bumps in the road to get there, a lot of logistics. I'm also eating it right now because having residential delivery, like the last time I had commercial delivery and I went and picked it up myself, but I've just priced it out and my time's worth more than that. So I'm paying a little more to have residential delivery. So they're coming in with a lift gate. Sometimes I'm actually going to buy a pallet jack just so I can easily move the pallets wherever I want. Some companies will move the pallet for you up to your garage. Some won't. I'm learning kind of the ins and outs of that because it's all new to me. But so yeah, that's really the plan with that. All right, I'm going to wrap up here in a few minutes, so I'll take any last minute questions you have. And Paul said the lucky jeans you autographed have now signed by Casey, Rally Roots, and Kelly. That's awesome. So Paul in the chat had he bought Jason's legendary first, I think it was his first listing ever of jeans, Jason for Prop Sales. Jason signed them, I signed them, and then it sounds like Casey, Rally Roots, and Kelly have all signed them. So that's really cool. Really, really cool. I appreciate you even asking me to do that, Paul. For anyone watching this later too, feel free. I mean, any questions that come out of this or ideas or thoughts, or if you even hear something I'm saying, like you could do this more efficiently, I've done this, I love to hear. I'm all for feedback. Drop them in the comments below. The best way to get in touch with me and get quick feedback is direct message on Instagram. I know not everyone has it, but that's just what I'm on most of the time, especially like if I'm at work or whatever, like during a break. I check my Instagram more than I check my YouTube. So just so you know that. Tina said, I guess you have to just have enough other listings that you can be able to wait for the bulk buy to sell. Otherwise, it's more risk for small sellers because you need to. Right, Tina. So that's exactly it. That's a great point. And maybe we can kind of conclude on that. So why I'm able to do what I'm doing right now is I don't take any money out of my business. So like very little money out of business. I reinvest almost all of the profit of my business back into my business. So whether it's paying contractors to list items, it's paying for more inventory, paying for equipment, more mannequins, more lighting equipment, whatever, right? Like I'm pouring it back in so I can do that. My goal is to increase my inventory, right? The value of my inventory. That's my goal right now. I'm not focused on pulling money out of it, right? I'm still keeping profitability in mind per unit, right? I'm focused on that, the economics of that, but I'm not focused on I need to draw $2,000 out of that this month to pay for something because I have my 9 to 5. And that is the luxury. As difficult it is to do what I'm doing now, that's the luxury of having the setup that I'm doing is I have an income that supports my life. And then this just gets fully rolled back into itself. And just like I've described it before, like I view it as 3 pillars, right? So like I have the consulting, I have my rental property, which is building long-term equity, and I have my business, right? My eBay business. Those are like the 3 pillars I focus on building so that I'm never, hopefully I get to a point where the contracting goes away and then I have rental portfolio, long-term equity, some short-term cash flow, and I have big business, right? That's hopefully the 2 pillars that I can merge to at some point. All right, guys, I am going to wrap up. I'm going to get some things done here before I actually have a full day tomorrow. We are going to see some friends. I'm actually going to golf and have a day on the lake, I think. So I'm going to we're going to refresh a little bit because I've been going pretty hard lately. And someone just asked, how do you decide on which person to hire as a photographer out of those you interview? So I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really interview anyone. So I exchanged a few messages. I asked them a few basic questions about like where are they geographically located to make sure it makes sense for me to meet them. I asked like, do they have a smoke-free home? I asked what their capacity that they'd be looking to do would be, like, you know, what type of money they're trying to make. And that's kind of it. And I make sure they have the basic requirements of the phone, the, you know, a good internet connection, that type of stuff. And that's it. And I just am like, if they want to try it, I'm like, I'll start you with 1 bin. Just try it to test. So I meet them, I exchange, and I always tell them up front, I'm like, if this isn't for you, it's no problem. Like you can start this week and be like, I don't really like this. No problem. No hard feelings. We can meet, exchange, no big deal at all. You've made a new friend, no big deal. That's how I approach it. And I've probably had about, like with this new model, I'm probably like 50-50 with whether they keep doing it or not. And that's fine. Like that's just a part of the process. Don't be afraid that they're not going to stick around. Don't be afraid they're going to be a bad fit. And don't be afraid to part ways with someone if they're just not getting it. Like, hey, you know, that's just the way it goes. All right, guys, have a great night. Thanks, Flipping Daily, for the tip on trailer parks. I know they are great rental opportunities. So have an awesome night, guys. Leave any comments or questions below. Hit me on Instagram and enjoy your weekend. I hope you guys crush it out there, especially if you're out there thrifting and treasure hunting. So see you guys later.